these are the answers for the study guide 6.6. For 6.6, it's physical and chemical changes. On the first section, you're asked to put a P or a C next to the description to show physical or chemical changes. The first one says you leave your bicycle out in the rain and it rusts. Rust and burning are both the same kind of chemical reaction, and so actually is digesting food. Those are all chemical changes. The next one, anytime you dissolve anything in water, it's still sugar, it's still water. They haven't changed at all, so it's a physical change. Number 3, pure potassium is usually stored in oil, but when you take it out, it catches on fire because it can react with the oxygen that you breathe. Any kind of burning is always chemical. Sand mixing with water, a lot like the sugar example, except the sand doesn't dissolve, it's just getting mixed up. It's still sand, it's still water, physical change. Number 5, a scientist breaks up some water, and that process is called hydrolysis. When you shoot electricity through water, you can separate the oxygen from the hydrogen. You're breaking bonds. That is a chemical change. Number 6, if you clean your bathroom and mix bleach and ammonia, you'll make a terribly horrible gas for yourself, and that is a chemical change because those things are bonding together to make a new compound that is toxic. Number 7, if you burn anything, it's chemical. Number 8, when you add milk to orange juice, it curdles. You make some chunks. That's making a new substance. That's a chemical change. The next ones on the list are asking for examples of physical and chemical changes, or signs of chemicals, I should say. For chemical changes, the 4 that we've talked about in class are anytime you see a color change, be careful. It's when you start with, for example, 2 things that are clear and they produce a color, not when you would, like, say, paint a house. If you paint a house, you're just adding something that is a certain color on top of. That's not changing either of those items. The next one is a temperature change. Again, be careful here. Just because I heat up some water on the stove doesn't make it a chemical change. What we're talking about is combining 2 things together that were maybe both at room temperature, let's say, and all of a sudden the temperature of those items goes down or goes up without having to add in any heat outside of that. Next one is an odor change. Again, be careful. Just because something stinks to begin with does not mean that there is a chemical change happening. If you go from one type of smell or no smell, and it changes after that, that's a good clue that it's chemical. And the last one, any kinds of bubbles or fizzing is a good sign that there's a chemical change. Over on my examples, I've picked 3 examples that you'll probably have different than mine, but I've picked 3 that usually show up either in people's confusions or on tests. One that we saw a lot is cutting down a tree that's still made of wood. The molecules haven't changed except that half of them are on the ground and half of them are in a stump. Number 2, boiling some water. Anytime you have a phase change, that's always a physical change. And the third one I have on my list, if you separate out a mixture, much like we did in our lab, it's still made of the same ingredients. You didn't change any of the bonds, so it is a physical change.